those days. And Abraham has a handmaiden called Hagar from Egypt. She's Sarah's servant, as she's presented. And because Sarah isn't bearing anybody, Sarah gives him her handmaiden to play with. And she bears a child, and that child is called Ishmael. And in Hebrew, that is Yishmael. God hears. God hears. Because God heard her prayer for a child. But not her child, but the child of the handmaid. So all these names are always interpreted in the Bible. Now, as Islam develops, this child becomes called Ismail in Arabic. And the Hebrew genealogists then developed the later genealogies of Isaac through Jacob, and Jacob has a brother called Esau, and the races of Jacob and Esau. And then it uses all these patriarchs, as it were, to develop the genealogies of peoples. All these patriarchs become the head of peoples. So Esau becomes the head of what people? The Edomite people. Edom in Hebrew means red. The Red Sea is called red because these are the people around the Red Sea. You know, these are the Edomites, the red people. I think the Red Sea, by the way, is called red. I've been on it because the mountains along it are all reddish color, and when they're reflected in the sea, it looks red. I think that's the reason the Red Sea is called red. But anyway, the people who inhabited the Red Mountains, and how many, have you ever been in a desert area and looked in the distance and the mountains all look red? You've seen, yeah, well, I mean, the people living in the Red Mountains, well, they'll be the red people. They're the Edomites. Anyway, they're the descendants of Jacob's brother Esau, according to the Bible. Now, Ishmael, Isaac's brother, or half-brother, as it were. Esau is a twin brother. Isaac is a half-brother. See, these genealogies are much more detailed than the Quran has. Much more detailed. Which I think shows you that the Quran has drawn from these genealogies either in an oral sense or another transmission sense. If you say the angel has done it, that's fair enough. That's your decision to describe it however you may. But the genealogies are much more extensive. And they're drawn, Muhammad, the angel, the Quran, Muslims pick and choose what suits them from these genealogies. I'm getting to a point here that Ishmael is going to be, for the Quran, the father of the Arab people. But that is not yet presented in the biblical narrative, which is 10 centuries earlier, at least, maybe 15. So, but Ishmael is introduced there, and do you remember the story about Ishmael playing with Sarah's child, and what happens there? Anyone remember that story? Oh, well, like typical things. Hagar gets uppity because, like any young woman who knows a man prefers her to some old hag who he's not preferring, she thinks she's the hotsy-totsy one, you follow me? So she goes around putting on airs, and that gets Sarah angry because she thinks Abraham prefers Sarah to Hagar to her. And then when she sees the children playing, she sees Sarah does ultimately have a child in that miraculous way where the angel comes and tells her she's going to have a child when she's 99. So now she's got a child who's somewhat younger than Ishmael called Isaac. And she doesn't like the fact that Ishmael is playing with Isaac. This is all very, very human. See, these storytellers are really very clever. They made stories that really appeal to people that people never forget, including, I think, the prophet never forgot when he heard them as well. Whether, again, he heard it from an angel or at campfires from people who knew the stories orally or in writing from biblical background. You'll have to decide that. But in any case, I'm sure for the Muslims in the room, they never heard these stories about Ishmael and Isaac and the whole relationship of Hagar and Sarah. I'm sure they've never heard these stories because no one ever tells it to them because they don't read the other literature. We read it all. We read the Quran. We read the Christian literature. We read the Jewish literature. So we can tell you. I'll get to a point about the Christians in a moment. So Hagar, Sarah's jealous. Even in the Hebrew Bible, the heroes are not presented as perfect people. They have their foibles. Abraham is a real dumb jerk in many of the things he does, and I don't want to go into all that. But you can read it yourself. I had a good friend of mine who was from Saudi Arabia many years ago in my classes, and he took those classes and he said, They're lies, these are lies, these are lies. Abraham was not stupid like that. He couldn't have been stupid like that. These stories are full of lies about Abraham. Yeah, because in the Quran it says that the Jews and Christians lie in their stories. And that's fair enough. I understand his reaction. Maybe they are lies, but the poets were always big liars back in the old days of Greece, Rome, and every other place. And the poets wrote these stories to interest people. They made them human. And the patriarchs are not perfect. They're not little Jesuses walking around. They're not perfect people. Abraham has his failings. He needs little girls when he's older to warm his bed. You know, he gets a third wife later on called Keturah, who keeps him warm for his bones are getting a little brittle, and he needs a little warming up when he's older. And so the storytellers make these things pretty human, including the jealousy of two wives. One the official wife and the other the concubine. Obviously there are going to be problems there, and the stories are fair enough about that. And the thing is that Sarah puts on airs. She doesn't want her child playing with a concubine's child. So she goes to Abraham, and Abraham, weak as he's always presented in these stories, says, oh my God, she says, get rid of this concubine to him. Now, my wife's told me the same thing many times, you know. In her imagination, anyway, maybe I've got concubines running around, and God never granted me any that I'm aware of. But, in any case, get rid of the concubine, I think, is a theme that goes through all of man and women's experiences. In any case, Abraham doesn't want to do it, but he finally calls Hagar and Ishmael to him, and he banishes them and says, you must leave. You know, my wife doesn't want you around anymore. And they do leave, and later on, the Bible is very sympathetic to Ishmael. Has him sitting at a well, and they're starving in the desert, and then an angel appears, or someone appears, God, and says that this is going to be your place, and here is a well, and you will have sustenance here, and they name the well. It's all in the biblical story, and then it says, and your son will be a father of peoples. And that's where the Muslims, or Muhammad, or the Quran, and the others get the idea that Abraham is that Ishmael is the father of peoples, the Arab peoples. And it lists the tribes. The Bible is really interested in listing tribes. And it lists the descendants of Ishmael. And just like in the Jewish tribes, am I boring you? Those gives you more information about Ishmael. Just as in the Jewish tribes, who's the father of the Jewish nation besides Abraham? Isaac comes along. Yeah, but Isaac has two children, and they're at odds with each other, and one of them becomes another people, Esau, as I told you, and basically that's an Arab people too. Esau is Edomite people.